Welcome back, everyone. We're here today on today's Cabral HouseCall, our second one of the weekend. Hopefully you tuned in yesterday. We answered some pretty amazing questions from the community. Of course, I would expect nothing less from our members. What I'm going to do right now is open up that big spreadsheet of questions. I guess it's more like a big pages document. And again, like I said before, this is always the first time that I see these questions. And what I want to do is give you a real world answer. So it's the same thing as if you and I saw each other after I gave a conference or talk or whatever it is and say, hey, I have this question about this, this, and this. Would you mind giving me a little bit of advice? And I'd say, sure. And I would give you the same exact advice. So I just want to make sure too that everyone knows that it takes about 6 weeks to get your question answered at Ask Cabral. So you don't need to write in multiple times. We see a lot of duplicates come in, and just understand we answer every single question, no matter what it says, we answer it. And so we're happy to do that as well. All right. So let me make sure that you can hear me well on this mic. And again, thank you so much for tuning in. Let's dive in. Today's episode 2186. So if you'd like to follow along with the questions, head on over to stephencabral.com/2186. All right. Christina's up next, or up first. And she writes in, for as long as I can remember, I get recurring yeast infections and BV. I generally flip-flop between the two. I know it's a common problem for many women. I am assuming I have candida overgrowth, but what can I actually do to solve this? In addition, I'm currently pregnant and having to treat a yeast infection now every 2 to 3 weeks. My doctor says to just keep treating it, but it is having a dramatic effect on my life. Keep in mind that I will be breastfeeding in a month or so. Yeah, totally understand. I've answered this question many times. So you wrote in on 12/16. It's about 6 weeks later. So I just want you to know you could have got your question answered 6 weeks ago just by searching stephencabral.com/podcasts and just typing in bacterial vaginosis. That's what BV stands for, or yeast infection, or you could do both. And you would get all the different podcasts on this. So I would love for you to be able to do that, stephencabral.com/podcasts. But I'm also just going to give you an excerpt as well, and then you can go in depth. Because so let's take pregnancy and breastfeeding out of the equation just for a moment, because I'm going to be giving you different advice. So bacterial vaginosis and candida overgrowth, or yeast infections, are almost one and the same. One's yeast and one's bacteria, but they both stem from not having enough acidic or anaerobic-based lactobacillus-based bacteria, or at least more of the lower pH bacteria in the vagina. So what you want to understand is that the only way to keep bacteria and yeast from overgrowing is to have a more acidic-based environment. Believe it or not, that can actually change a bit during pregnancy. And so you want to take all of this into consideration. And then you can look at our BV and yeast-based balancing protocols. So I have podcasts on boric acid-based capsules. I know it sounds a lot scary, but we're basically using boric inside of a vegetable-based capsule as a vaginal suppository to kill temporarily the yeast and bacteria. Now, you can do that with a lot of other different types of things, and that's not the end-all be-all, right? Because we're not providing any medical diagnosis, medical treatment plans, or medical cures. So eventually, though, you do need to work on the internal environment, and that is removing and rebalancing the yeast and bacteria. So you can either lab test for that with a Candida metabolic and vitamins test, or a bacteria and parasites stool test. That's at stephencabral.com/labs, and then you'll know exactly what's going on. Or you can move right into completing the CBO protocol with the citricidal. The problem is you can't do that until you're done breastfeeding. So I know it's a catch-22, but we always do things that are safest for people and safest for women and their babies. All right? So hopefully that was helpful. Jeffrey is up next. Hello, Dr. Steve. I'm grateful for your generosity and the expansion you create in the world. Thank you, Jeffrey. Could you please add a review of the coffee alternative product called Mud Water? I'm curious as to your professional and personal evaluation. With gratitude, Jeffrey. All right. So Jeffrey, I don't use Mud Water, but I keep myself just apprised of the industry because I love the nutrition, I love the fitness, I love the functional medicine, the naturopathy, the supplement-based space. I love it. And so when I look at great products, I say, hey, like I recommend this as well. This is great. And I've got a big resource page at stephencabral.com/resources, and you'll see 100 other brands besides Equal Life there. I always want to make sure that you get access to what I do at Equal Life. That's our private practice, but we don't do everything. That's for sure. What do? Nutritional supplements, protocols, and lab testing. But when I love binaural beats or saunas or water filters, we don't do any of those things. So we recommend other companies. So Mudwater is not dissimilar to Four Sigmatic. And Four Sigmatic is another mushroom coffee. Really what you're talking about is a coffee alternative called a mushroom coffee or mushroom blend. And typically they are instant type coffees, meaning you pour the powder in and then you pour hot water on it, and then voila, you have coffee, right? Well, not really, right? Because it's not coffee. It's a mushroom powder that kind of tastes like coffee. To be honest, it kind of does. The difference with Mudwater is they're adding, again, I don't have this memorized, but I do remember looking at it, and I've got a weird thing with remembering what I see. And so I see the label and I can see turmeric on it. I think there's black pepper on it. And I believe there is some type of tea, but again, don't quote me. And the reason is that it contains a little bit of caffeine. And again, I'm just remembering this. It's something like, it's a small amount, like 20 milligrams. I think they quote it as like a seventh of a cup or something like that of caffeine. So I've never used it, and that's because I don't use typically instant products like that. I'm not against them, but I like just a good decaf coffee, or every once in a while a half calf, half decaf. So that's what I enjoy, and so I just don't use those, but I'm certainly not against them. The people that they wouldn't work well for are people with histamine issues. If you are Th2 dominant and you have histamine issues, that black pepper and the turmeric and the mushrooms and all that could cause you to have itchy eyes, brain fog, skin itchiness, hives. Now, but how do you know? Well, you could simply try a packet, and if you get those symptoms, well, there you go. Could be histamine-based issues. So Jeffrey, hopefully that's helpful. I know a lot of people love those companies, not just Mudwater, but other ones as well, because they can give them that nice warmth that they want with very little caffeine or no caffeine in some cases, and you can enjoy that. So hopefully that's helpful. Becky's asking, are you the NP that reversed your Addison's disease? Did you have primary or secondary, and how did you do it? Do you have protocols or recommendations to support the body for primary adrenal insufficiency? All right, great question. So I am that person, but I'm not an NP. An NP is a nurse practitioner. So I'm a doctor of naturopathy. So my degree is a doctorate of naturopathy. And but the degree doesn't really, honestly, whether you're a nurse, chiropractor, doctor of naturopathy, acupuncturist, whatever it might be, there's no secret to being a doctor of naturopathy. I went to school, learned what I need to learn. I did internships, but I've read thousands of books. And then I went through this myself, right? So I had to go through this process. So I had Addisons. I had, unfortunately, autoimmune issues, blood sugar issues, and many, many others. I'm not going to go into those today. Now, even though I was able to, so here's the thing. Diagnosed with Addison's disease, put on Cortef, diagnosed with POTS, that goes along with Addison's typically, put on Florinef, diagnosed with a lot of other diseases. I still can't say that I cured them, because technically that's illegal. I know how strange that sounds. But what I did was I rebalanced my body so that those diseases could no longer exist, because there is no way to get rid of Addison's. However, if you get rid of the reasons and causes why you had Addison's in the first place, then Addison's can't exist. That's what I try to teach people. At some point in your life, you didn't have Addison's. At some point in your life, you didn't have an autoimmune issue. At some point in your life, you didn't get migraines. At some point in your life, you didn't have high cholesterol or high blood pressure. You don't have to have them now. It's just the way that it is. And it doesn't mean you fix it overnight. Addison's disease is not easy to overcome, but you can. And so there is no protocol. That's what people ask me. Give me the protocol for Addison's. You have to understand is you have to know why you have Addison's. I had candida overgrowth. I had bacterial overgrowth. I had H. pylori. I had high metals like mercury. I had massive immune dysfunction. I had high omega-6s. I had lots of food sensitivities, allergies, indoor and outdoor. I had to work on my body being broken and all that intestinal permeability. So what did I do? I followed exactly what I wrote in the rain barrel effect. So I teach you how to overcome any health, weight, or aging-based issue in the rain barrel effect. And that book is free. I give it away now because it's exactly what I do in my practice. I tell you how you get sick, how you get well again. And it's literally, I pay to print the book. You just pay for the shipping. And you can find that at stephencabral.com. And I'm sure there'll be a link somewhere my team has put up there for that free book. All right. Hopefully that was helpful. And yes, so there we go. And thank you, Becky, for writing in. And I know that, again, I had primary Addison. So I think you asked that question. I had primary. So my adrenals were not producing cortisol. And I know you know about this. And I did the specific ACTH stim test to go through all of that. My PCP could not believe it. Literally could not believe it. But anyway, that's a story that we'll talk more about another day. Alex is up next. Hi, Dr. Cabral. I'm super thankful for your continued work and service to the world. My question is regarding swallowing pills. I have this mental block where whenever I try to swallow a pill, my throat just locks up and I swallow the water, but the pill will still stay there in my mouth. Any tips, advice, or resources for moving past this? I was able to swallow a specific medication that I'm not going to mention so I don't get censored a few months ago because it was so tiny. Actually, I have to erase that. Unfortunately, it's one of those ones that has to do with the virus. And I'm just going to write meds instead, and everybody can kind of use their imagination. Thank you for your time and presence. I appreciate you, Alex. I really do. So here's the thing. Something happened to make you anxious and nervous about swallowing these capsules, most likely thinking you may choke. So one thing to use that works great for people, and I know this sounds kind of crazy, is hypnotherapy. But hypnotherapy combined with that neurolinguistic programming, and most NLP people often use hypnotherapy with it, you might be able to get rid of it within a week or 2 weeks' time, doing a couple sessions with them. So that's one advice. The other is that I taught my oldest daughter to swallow capsules because she just had some health things we had to correct when she was a little younger at a very young age. And what I taught her to do was put some water in her mouth and then put the capsule in and to float the capsule in the water in her mouth. And then she just swallowed water, which felt normal, and the capsule went down with it. Maybe give that a shot, all right? That's what I would look at. Now, if you end up can't swallowing capsules, what we do is we just mix the content of the capsules in a smoothie, or if it's very it just wouldn't taste good with your smoothie, would kind of ruin the taste. You just put it in like 1 ounce of tart cherry juice or pomegranate juice, which has very little calories, very little sugars. It can actually give you some health benefits, and then you just kind of drink it down like that, all right? Or even some people mix it in with a little bit of applesauce or something like that, all right? So we do that for both children and adults. Michael's up next. Can H. pylori and gastritis, which is kind of inflammation of the stomach and esophagus sometimes, cause tension headaches? All right, again, good question. The answer is yes, but not necessarily tension headaches. So I think when people refer to tension headaches, it's sometimes in the temples or side of the head. Sometimes people refer to it over their eyes, but that's more like an ocular based tension that can happen with migraines and things like that. But anyway, they feel tension in their head, and I understand that. So yes, it can cause that. It causes tension, and the reason is that it can be inflammatory. So the more active that bacteria is, the more inflammation there may be, especially when you're eating. Oftentimes, that can flare things up. So yes, there can create tension headaches, or at least a headache based on inflammation. Okay, and certainly. Yes, that's why doctors can continue to treat the headaches, but I believe really working on the H. pylori is what you want to do. All right, Lara is up, and hers says, "Good day. I'm obsessed with your podcast. I listen to it every day. I wanted to understand how marijuana is known to dilate the pupils. Wouldn't it be the other way around? I thought marijuana would activate the parasympathetic state, and we know that dilation of the pupils is related to the sympathetic state, which doesn't make a lot of sense." All right, Lara sounds like she's gone through maybe IHB or she at least knows a bit about bioregulatory systems, bioregulatory medicine in the body. So good for you, Lara. For those people that don't, let's explain it. So your pupils typically will react to light. So right now I've got light on. If you're watching this on video at stephencabral.com/2186 or on YouTube. And if you're watching on YouTube, we appreciate you. If you could please like, subscribe. It means a lot to us to grow the channel, reach more people. So what happens is your pupils get smaller the more light there is, so that the actual eye itself doesn't get damaged. I'm not going to get into the retina and all the different connections in the eye. But what I want to share with you is then when you're relaxed in the parasympathetic or it is low light, the pupils dilate to let more light in. Okay, so now when I was in private practice and had my office, I would do an exam and I would use a pen light, and then I would just shine the light in someone's eye, and I would see if their pupil would constrict, and it should. And if it did, I would see how long does it stay constricted, and if it wouldn't stay constricted for at least 5 seconds, and it started like open and then close, open and close, okay, then I would know that this person, the strength of their nervous system is not what it should be. I won't get too deep into that right now. That's neither here nor there. What Lara is saying basically is the more stressed you are, what should happen, like in a fight or flight response, your pupils end up going wide. And then when the more parasympathetic you are, the pupils end up being like pinpoints. And honestly, you see this a lot with people on blood pressure medications because they're being forced down, right? Like you're not allowed to get in fight or flight because you were lowering your blood pressure. All right. Anyway, I feel like I'm getting too deep right now, but let me answer Lara's question because this is a good one. Now, the interesting thing is that certain drugs, and I'm not against cannabis. I'm just not. If this is personal belief, again, this is not me recommending it. Okay. I'm not smoking marijuana or cannabis like that. It's just not what I do. But if people are allowed to drink alcohol, in my opinion, marijuana is far less harmful, in my opinion. But that's just my opinion. So it's actually not my opinion. It's fact. You cannot overdose on marijuana. Natural marijuana, synthetic marijuana you can, which is very dangerous, but alcohol clearly you can. But anyway, I digress. This isn't about that. So what I would say is this, that marijuana is supposed to relax your body. The problem is it can also increase dopamine. Dopamine is the reward system and can dilate the pupils. That is one of 3 reasons why it is often believed that marijuana doesn't, not for everybody, but like 50% of the people, it dilates their pupils. One other possible reason is that it lowers people's blood pressure, or can lower people's blood pressure, may lower people's blood pressure. Again, not medical advice. And then there's one more, that it's again, none of these are proven yet, but this is the 3rd theory. The theory is that when under the influence of marijuana, there may be a slower reaction time or poorer reaction time to light, which means the pupils stay dilated longer because they're not responding to that natural reflex. So hopefully that answered your question, Lara. It was a good question. And luckily I had done the research before this and had been asked this question before because it's a very good one. So thank you, everyone. I expect nothing less from our amazing community. I appreciate you. Of course, if this was helpful, please do feel free to share it with anyone else you believe it could serve. And I'll be back tomorrow on our Motivation and Mindset Monday. Don't miss it. Take care, everyone.